Well, the Riftlab trial, the first one, has gone underway on Friday, and man, it was a long day, but an absolutely thrilling day to be able to see what all these gameplays can bring to us, and not only that, but also what kind of deck lists are continuing to make waves in this meta, even though the game is not even out yet. So let's go ahead and take a look at what gameplay and deck lists ended up topping in this great tournament. All of that and more starting right now. With this tournament, we had a very high caliber production team behind us with everything that we were able to do. Not only that, but we had Jacob, of course, who was able to go ahead and put together so much to be able to make this broadcast absolutely possible. Being able to create graphics and things of that nature. Huge shout out to Crazy, huge shout out to Jacob, and huge shout out to the entire team that made this tournament possible. It looked absolutely incredible, and the casters, especially, all of the casters that were able to come together on that were able to provide very high content with that while commentating the gameplay. Also, to the competitors as well, for being able to use, Tabletop Simulator in that case very smoothly, looked very natural as they were going in and using it. Very well done on that part as well. We had gameplay cameras that were able to capture, the players as they were playing on a computer, and there were some really awesome moments, especially with Ghosty, for example, who ended up getting 7th in the tournament, mind you, as well. I was casting the match with him, and he just when he saw that there wasn't a hidden blade when he moved in to try to get the win, just a thank you on the camera. Really awesome stuff there with that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff to be able to look at with this, a lot of really fun, high caliber stuff with these deck lists, and some really unique stuff as well, something to really keep in mind. First off, this is very different than what we have seen in other tournaments. I mean, first and foremost, normally there's a lot of victors kind of moving into meta and things of that nature here. He's kind of taken a little bit of a step back, and I don't know if people are just more so getting used to now the meta and playing these more complicated decks are able to do so at a higher level, or if just Darius now is kind of the better Victor. Victor, of course, is still, in my opinion, one of the most consistent deck when it comes to actually piloting, him as a legend. But even still, there are better decks that if you can pilot them more efficiently, creating better options here, better choices all together, that you're able to do a lot more than what you would do otherwise with Victor. So we might have necessarily seen him take a step back. Now, outside of all of this as well, and as you can probably see over here, is that Master Yi ended up taking a very big upswing in the meta now, and this is really interesting as well because we've seen in a lot of past videos and things of that nature, and a lot of different meta reports as well, that we had the climb of Set, we had kind of the climb of Kaisa, and now this week we have the climb of Master Yi. And I mean, that probably has a lot to do with how Master Yi has been able to do as well in tournament. Now, he is one of the easier decks to pilot. It's very simple to try to get done what you need to get done with him. You go ahead and put a unit into each battlefield, and then you just save some stuff to buff them up and go from there. Now, that can be very easy to do, but if you happen to miss out on a couple of units or things like that, you can end up falling short. But still, when we got into the top 8, 4 of them were Master Yi, just absolutely being able to dominate that meta. But not only that, kind of a bigger surprise here as well that I need to also take note of is that there was a lot of different legends. I mean, everyone was absolutely surprised by the Volley Bear there as well. Just really cool to be able to see, him make a appearance into the meta, because he's kind of also taken a step back where not necessarily a lot of people have utilized him, and we'll talk about his deck in a little bit. But I mean, Megan absolutely did an amazing job, and huge shout out to the competitors and everyone there again, because I think we ended up playing until like 5 a.m. UK time, Europe time, in that regard. And so a lot of the competitors did end up dropping early. Moyen, for example, we're going to be taking a look at his deck list because he went 7-0, but ended up dropping just because he was playing at like 3 a.m. And we were barely starting to get into the top 8 cut. And that is late for anyone. And of course, Jacob, especially with the Riftlab trial, has come out and said, hey, guys, just so you know, we might be making this two-day tournament kind of thing in the future. We might be actually making it where it's just less people, so it takes less time. Just depends on how everything going. They're feeling that out right now, but it very well could be that we go into a 2-day tournament at this pace. And so, really interesting stuff to be able to see with that. But first and foremost, really interesting tidbit here, of course, is going to be Moyen here. Now, first and foremost, the biggest thing that he does say is stop playing 3-ofs only. And that was kind of his biggest thing here, was that a lot of people were kind of underutilizing options here because, and this was kind of an issue that I was seeing with Kaisa a little bit, is that you would be able to, sure, clear the battlefield, but then you didn't necessarily have a whole lot to hold the battlefield. And so, especially in the early game, you're kind of sitting around like John Travolta, like, well, no one's here, no one's necessarily taking points, but I can't necessarily do anything to get ahead in this game. And so, Kaisa, though, in this case, has been very efficient, and there's some really great Moyen gameplay that we're going to be playing for you as well here. Now, a good 6-6 split, really interesting. Now, there's been a couple of differences that we've seen, like there was another Kaisa that had a energy conduit, which was a really efficient thing. Now, of course, that ended up kind of biting him a little bit in the back because at one point he had 3 out onto his base. And while he did have a lot of runes, he didn't necessarily have a lot of character or units and things of that nature, champions to be able to get out onto the battlefield to do anything with that. But still, a really interesting thing to be able to add to your deck. Now, with that as well, this has a really awesome curve as well. Something to keep in mind. Now, of course, if you look over where I'm covering up, you see right here, we got a lot of really evenly balanced stuff, which is exactly why you go ahead and flip this. Moyen, I mean, I'm sure he has absolutely deck tested this up to up the wazoo in this case to create a very efficient list here, and a great job at that. Now, for battlefields, of course, we are looking at the Targon's Peak, which when you conquer here, ready 2 runes at the end of this turn. That can also kind of help out Master Yi a lot, but still, if you go ahead, there's a lot of utility here that you're able to utilize with that. Reckoner's Arena, when you hold here, activate the conquering effect unit here. That's going to be mainly for like the Kaisa, because when you go ahead and conquer, you draw 1. So you're going to be upkeeping and drawing extra cards, which is going to be really big here. Now, of course, I think that is going to be the only one that ends up having a conquer ability, but still, you also have Kaisa as your legend. You're going to have her on the side of your deck. You're going to be able to get her out there and potentially get things moving. Also, with the accelerated, you can just immediately go in and take over Reckoner's Arena and potentially even get a great option on taking that over. Now, Void Gate as well is going to be a really interesting one. As you see, spells and abilities affect units here. Each deal 1 bonus damage. Really awesome ability here. Now, some really awesome stuff here. Really good consistency. Retreat is going to be interesting just to be able to protect those big things that you might want to go ahead and utilize later in the turn if you need to save a Kaisa, for example, or things of that nature, or even more so like bring back a Darius, Riptide Rex, or a Thousand-Tailed Watcher. A lot of things that you can be able to do with that. Cleave is just amazing as well, especially with Darius. He's going to be kind of like the big combo with that because you can go ahead and play out the Darius for 5 in this case. Then you just go ahead and you play Cleave. You pump him up by 3, but then his ability automatically readies him up and adds 2 on top of that. So you can just go ahead and swing in and take anything over. Now, the nice part about Falling Star is, of course, Kaisa's ability to go ahead and make it cost a little bit less, make it not as painful. There isn't necessarily a whole lot of recycling in this deck, which is really awesome to be able to see. And so if you can just go ahead and keep upping your runes, especially once you start getting into the late game, you can start really pushing into the meta or pushing into the battlefield for wins and really make a giant impact on that as well. So really great stuff to be able to see here. Just really strong abilities and things to be able to get going with that. So really awesome to be able to see this. Now, of course, you have a lot of spells and abilities to be able to move things out of the way. Ravenbloom Student is going to be one of your biggest attributes on getting battlefields, especially if you just go ahead and you start dealing damage to units in battlefields and things of that nature. Ravenbloom is just going to continue to get pumped up as well. You can clear out some really dangerous threats and then even just go ahead and continue to pump up the might of Ravenbloom Student. So really great stuff there. Really awesome to be able to see. Smokescreen is also going to just be a really well utilized, spell in this case, being able to give -4 to something. That can be absolutely devastating. And that's going to be one of the biggest things about Kaisa here is that you can either just deal a lot of damage or you can stop them in their tracks. And then as soon as they kind of run out of things to flood the board with, you're just like, cool, thank you. I'll go ahead and take it from here. I mean, Legion rear guard is going to be really good as well, especially from turn 3. You can just go ahead and play him accelerated, immediately taking a battlefield if you so choose. Card draw is going to be really big. Draw 1 when this character is killed. Also, with Lecturing Yordle is really good as well, because as soon as you play him for free, then cool, you automatically get to replace him. So just really good stuff right there. Void Seeker, again, draw 1. And that's going to be the biggest thing with Kaisa that I've found as well, because the biggest thing that is going to be to your detriment is if you happen to run out of cards. You can't keep your hand full of units and spells and abilities. You're just going to be falling short. I mean, still, though, a really efficient deck and really great at doing what it needs to do. Now, late game, you have a lot of really great options here. First off, Riptide Rex, while yes, you do have to recycle too, which can take a lot out in that case, you still have a lot that you are able to utilize because he can just come in and deal 6 to an enemy unit at a battlefield. And that's going to be a big difference here with what you normally will see with a carnivorous Snapvine in this case. A Snapvine, they deal damage to each other, and there's still even a chance to go ahead and buff a unit that you are targeting in that case with Snapvine, and so you can end up not necessarily taking it out, or you can end up trading in, and that was a lot that you had to recycle. So for costing 1 more and still needing to recycle 2, it's a great card, really well utilized in this deck, and can deal a lot of damage on board control. And then surprisingly to me, I absolutely love this Thousand Tail Watcher. You can go ahead and accelerate it, and that's going to be the biggest thing that you're wanting to do with this as well, because then on top of that, when it comes into play, it just -3s to everything, and that's just going to be absolutely amazing to be able to see and utilize as well. Then with that, of course, Bright Mother is going to be really good as well, because you're able to go ahead and play for 4, and you get a 3, which is awesome, but not only that, you are then able to play a 3 Might Sprite, which can make a really big difference here. Now, sighting is going to be one of the bigger parts of your gameplay here, and especially making things, more viable and things like that as well. Now, of course, you are going to be running 2 more retreats in this case, just in case you do need to bring something back that you definitely do not want to lose. If you do want to bring back a Thousand Tail Watcher, that way you can just go ahead and play it again on the next turn. More power to you. At the same time, too, Legion rear guard can go ahead and continue to come in accelerated. Again, if you just need to help flood the board. If you do need to go ahead and kind of rotate that out, you could even put him in and put the 1 retreat out. But again, this deck has already performed incredibly well, very consistent. So trust the system in this case, I would even say. More so to myself than anything else. Then, of course, the Thousand Tailed Watcher as well. Just to have 1, you're already running 2, but if you need that little extra consistency with that, go for it. And then the Cathian Rain as well. You do this 6 times, and of course, it's a 7 and a 3 recycle, which can be an absolute lot, but you are able to deal 2 damage to a unit. Now, that won't necessarily do a whole lot to like a Volibear deck, because especially if like a Volibear is out, it won't necessarily matter because you'll have to target, him a couple of times, but still, really great deck, really awesome to be able to see with this. Now, this was the guy who actually ended up winning the tournament. If I remember correctly, someone actually did end up dropping right before the top cut, and Vendordi ended up actually coming in as the 8th seed and ended up just running it to the victory there. Now, again, keep in mind that with this tournament, everything did end up running really late with that. So, great job, though, on his part to be able to come in just like that. Now, we all know his effector, even if you guys don't, because the game is brand new, of course, it hasn't even come out yet. When a buffed unit you control would die, you may recycle and exhaust me to spend its buff and recall it exhausted instead. And so, I mean, that's just a great ability. A lot of really good insurance on your units that you would probably need to protect in this case. And that's going to be one of the biggest things too. And you got to be almost a little bit careful, because there can be a lot of units that cause you to recycle, but it looks like they've actually gone out of their way to kind of avoid that. But still, if you start kind of recycling a little bit too much, there's one point in the tournament where someone did end up going down to just 3 runes back into their with their runes, and that was it. That's really tough to try to come back from in that case. And so you just got to kind of mitigate that a little bit. Now, what's really interesting too, though, is playing the other set case. And when I'm played and when I conquer buff and spend my buff to give me +4 this turn, and so that can just really help to, plow into something very scary in this case. Now, of course, with Showstopper as well, really good card on top of that. Buff a friendly unit in your base, then move it to a battlefield so it can just come in and immediately swing in. Now, this is a deck that is normally, or this is a card that is normally side deck. You don't normally see it too much in the main deck, but this might actually be something that ends up happening more in the meta. And this is really interesting as well because Sabotage is doing a great job here on being able to just take out major threats that are not units. And it just automatically gets recycled. You put it on the bottom of your deck, that's it, awesome, it is gone. The odds of you being able to even see that card again is really good. And on top of that, it's a 1-cost 1 recycle. Cool, that's awesome. And it's just able to pull out something really scary. And I mean, if you're going against like a Kaisa or things like that, you can go ahead and take out the really troubling spell, from their hand and really help slow them down while you try to keep moving in and taking control of the map. Now, of course, one of the better ones in this case is going to be Pit Rookie at the 2 cost. Now, of course, T-Mac have always called this Pookie and would have a counter going during the tournament with that, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, Pit Rookie is a really great card because you go ahead and just play it in, you buff another unit. Now with Set, that's going to be an absolutely crucial one, but even just in general, having one more might added makes it incredibly great. Now, at the same time, it can kind of hurt where you have this card in hand and you just end up playing it and you're just like, oh, that's it. Okay, well, I can't buff itself, so I kind of just lose out on that buff. But this deck is still able to move incredibly quick. You see how many 2 costs we end up having here. I mean, 12 in this case, or actually even more than that, 15 in this case of 2 costs in this deck. I mean, that is just a lot out of a 40-card deck. But I mean, at the same time, there's a reason for that, and you're able to just go ahead and buff up and take things and run with it. And you have things like Call to Glory to help close the gap on the high might that you might be running into, especially maybe going against Master Yi and things of those natures. And we did see, he did have to take down multiple Master Yis during this tournament and able to do so. Challenge is also another great one to really help get things going with that as well. First Mate to really help things move in and attack strong. But one of the biggest things here is the Monk. Now, this is an exciting card to be able to use. It's only a 4-cost recycle 1 as well. And then when you play me, buff 2 other friendly units. And then, yeah, you're just able to go ahead and get things moving with that, especially if you had a set out or things of that nature. Also, if you need to go ahead and play a Fiora and then you play, the Monk and get it buffed, really awesome stuff right there, because then you have deflect, ganking, and shield on top of that, which is a lot of really fun stuff to be able to have. Now, Kiana is going to be really good as well, because if you just go ahead and try to conquer in this case, then when you do, you are able to draw a card or channel a rune, which can be very helpful. Now, Cannon Barrage is going to be really good. Deal 2 damage to all enemy units in combat, which is a really great surprise, especially if you're maybe going to get victors or things of that nature. Can really make a big difference there. Noxian Drummer, when you go ahead and move into a battlefield, you play a 1 recruit, which makes a big difference, especially when trying to hold. And then also Anivia, when I attack, deal 3 damage to all enemy units here. That could just be absolutely devastating. If you do happen to have 10 available in that case, you can go ahead and do First Mate and Aniva, or you could even do like a Showstopper in this case as well. For 8 in that case, I mean, you are going to be recycling 3. That could be very devastating in that case. But I mean, if you can just go ahead and swing into a battlefield that is heavily occupied, dealing 3 damage, that already can clear out a lot. And then on top of that, you're going to have 9 that is going to be swinging in on top of that. Just a lot of really great stuff here. There's a reason why this deck ended up winning. Really great draw bet right there. Now, Nick Danger played, incredibly well. And again, like I said, this might even be like a better victor in this case, and something to really keep in mind with that. Really cool to be able to see. Now, of course, we're able to see the curve in this case. Really good job on all of this to see what it's actually able to do. Really good, wide ability here to be able to get what you need without, shooting yourself in the foot. Now you have Seal of Unity, which can be really helpful to try to pay, recycling costs in this case. Really helpful there as well. Darius is, of course, going to be the one of. Go ahead and play, him and his cleave. You can do some really devastating stuff. Hidden Blade for some great removal. Now, the biggest thing with that as well is that you can go ahead and do a Hidden Blade on yourself, on your unit at the battlefield to go ahead and, like, you're like, well, the Poro's going to die anyway. Would I rather the Poro just go ahead and die, and then I can draw 2 cards on top of that? Really nice to be able to have in that case. And then, of course, at the start of each player's beginning phase, that player gains 1 point. Really nice to have. The War Camp to include +1 when you are attacked again. And Candlelit Sanctum, when you conquer here, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You're able to keep them at the top or recycle them as you so choose. Really helpful. Now, the bread and butter of this deck, of course, is going to be Baited Hook. Sometimes when it's hard to find this deck, it can be a little bit difficult to try to get things moving and to try to get them going efficiently. But still, there's also some calculation that you need to be able to do to find the balance. There's a risk and reward that comes with Baited Hook, but still, this is an absolutely great card. Now, biggest thing with this is you go ahead and pay 1, and you can go ahead and kill a friendly unit. Look at the top 5 cards of your main deck, and you may play a unit from among them that has the might up to 1 more than the killed unit, ignoring its cost. Well, rightfully so. You have a lot of 2s, you have a lot of 3s. You can go ahead and just sack them now. One of the bread and butters of this deck is that you can go ahead and sack like a Faithful Manufactor in this case. Then if you top deck in this, a Spectral Matron, you then can go ahead and play from your discard something that costs 3 or less and no more than 1 recycle. And so what you're able to do then is go ahead and play a Faithful Manufactor, and it then comes in, and you are able to, or even better, a Vanguard Captain is the one I meant to talk about. Then you can go ahead and play 2 more Recruit, and just like that, for sacking 1, you were able to play 4 units out. Like, that's just absolutely crazy. And there's even times that you will go ahead and target things with the Baited Hook that's actually in an occupied battlefield. It might just go ahead and be taken. You want to try to get some utility out of that. There's a Poro there. Let's go ahead and use Baited Hook. Activate that. Kill the Baited Poro and get like a Vanguard Captain out, in this case, to be able to move things going or get things moving with that. Now, one of the nicer things here, of course, is going to be Vayne as well. The big thing with that is going to be Assault +3, which can be incredibly helpful as well with that. And then with that, just go ahead and hit hard for 5. Really surprise people. Comes in ready as long as an opponent controls a battlefield, which they pretty much are. And then when you conquer, you can pay 1 to just flash it back to your hand. Call it good. One thing that's going to be really interesting here as well is going to be Raven in this case, because his might is increased by his points. So if you're at 6 points, cool. That's perfectly fine. You're at 9 with Raven for a 5 cost. That's really great. Then, of course, Grand Stratagem is going to have a very helpful final push. As soon as you get to 6 points, cool. If you have a battle, or if you have your base built up in that case, you can make that push. And there's only Wind Wall is really the only thing that can go ahead and stop that. And not necessarily a lot of decks are running it in this case. They are citing it, but even just to have them have that in their hand might not actually be happening. So things to keep in mind with there. Now, this will be a good sighting for, a Kaisa or a lot of units like that Annie if you end up running into her at all, because when you play me, opponents can't play cards this turn. Even Master Yi, for example, he won't be able to necessarily buff up, or activate anything to make the might of his unit at battlefield go up anymore. Really good there. Darius, if you need some extra pull of the week, just in case you're running into a lot of really dangerous stuff. Volibear, for example, really good for this because they're going to have a lot of really big units. You can just go ahead and call the week and take out one of their tokens, take out one of their big things. And that's kind of the biggest thing with defeating a Volibear. If you can just take out their big piece that they're putting out each turn, you can find yourself in a very good place. But you also, just in case for that, you can kill a gear this way and draw 1. So really helpful stuff right there as well. Now, like we said, Master Yi was one of the most shown stuff here in this case. And so a lot of really crazy things to be able to behold here. But again, 6-6 on this split. Really great to see. Ended up going ahead and I believe getting 4th or 3rd in this case. Yeah, ended up getting 3rd. Really great job there in this case. and just is able to do things incredibly consistent. Now, the biggest thing though is that you want to be able to take a battlefield. If you cannot take the battlefield, Master Yi just really starts to struggle early on, and you find yourself in a trouble. Now, the nice part about that is that you do have things like Carnivorous Snapvine to help clear out battlefields so that on turn 3 you can go ahead and put like a Poro in. You can go ahead and put like, your Pit Rookie in, whatever it might be. Go ahead and see how everything is going with that. Charm is going to be one of your biggest pieces here on getting things moving because, man, is it scary. In general, this is a great card because what you are able to do is move in and cause an enemy unit to just move in. And then you get the Master Yi buff of his legend ability to add +2 to their might just for defending. And if you have also any other cards to activate, really great to be able to take out some dangerous threats. When going against Victor, you can just literally grab Victor and pull him in. That's the only Victor they have in the deck. It's awesome. Now, Mask of Foresight's going to be really good as well because whenever a friendly unit attacks or defends alone, which is going to be pretty consistently, then you give it +1. Really helpful there. And then you just have a lot of your buffs. Clockwork Keeper for some card draw if need be. Hourglass just to help recall stuff instead. Really helpful there. Sunlit Guardian is actually one of my favorite ones. I play 3 of in my version of Master Yi. Just being able to have shield +1, tank as well. Not necessarily needed in the ability because he is attacking alone. But then also just having the ability to be up to 5 when defending alone with Master Yi. First Mate, really good to be able to ready and move a unit in. Primal Strength to help get back battlefields that might be a struggle. And, White Flame Protector to be able to add +8 to something and then go ahead and move in. Now, biggest thing, too, to keep in mind, Master Yi is really good here because he can go ahead and have ganking as well. And we saw a great play during the tournament where Master Yi was able to just absolutely devastate the opponents here, being able to go ahead and take over a battlefield and then just move right over and then go in and absolutely clear out the other battlefield as well, just with all the buffs and everything that he was able to utilize with that. It was very scary stuff. Now, Pack a Club, you can also play this for hidden, which is really nice because you can just add 3. Kind of okay in this case, just because with that being said, the hard part about that is then you kind of miss out on the Mastery Key buff a little bit. That gets calculated when another unit then falls to the battlefield in that case. Unyielding Spirit to help stop the Kaisa damage. Spirit Refuge as well is really nice. To play this, buff a friendly unit. Friendly units buff have deflect, so they can't be, if they're targeted by spells or abilities, they have to be, the opponent has to recycle a room. And then Stand United, you can go ahead and buff a friendly unit, give an additional +1 might to a friendly unit this turn. Really helpful stuff. Final deck, and this one was actually really surprising. Me and T-Mac, when we were casting the tournament and everything, we were just surprised that Megan was playing a Volibear deck, but also just even able to go ahead and play at the top. Now, Volibear, of course, he's one of the structure decks that you're able to get in the first drop of this game as well. So really helpful to be able to play that as well. And then with that, you are able to go ahead and if you play anything that is mighty, aka anything that is 5 might or higher, then he can just go ahead and ready a rune exhausted, which can really help when you happen to be recycling a lot of runes because a lot of these units might be, a 2 rune, unit in this case, especially Carnivorous Snapvine. You go ahead and you play him, you just automatically make it a 1 recycle anyway, a little less painful in this case. But look at everything that does end up having to be recycled. You do have some good stuff to try to get ramped. There is also another card that is a 4 cost that gets you to ramp 2 in this case, but it looks like Mobilize is really the only thing in this case that will get you there. Really interesting stuff. The battlefields, of course, increase the points needed to win the game by 1, so you need 9 instead of 8. And then when you conquer here, recycle one of your runes, which can really hurt opponents in this case. And then at the start of each player's beginning phase, that player channels 1 rune. Just really great stuff here as well. Also going Sabotage again to really help clear out that early game. Some early units to try to help create and get some battlefields early on. Darius, again, just going to be really good at being able to take battlefield. Snapvine to be able to remove things from battlefield. And then, of course, you just have some really big and devastating units. Now, the hard part about this, and what we saw with this is that Dazzling Aurora, while good, it doesn't necessarily hit the ground running incredibly hard because you are playing a lot of units, which is really helpful. But sometimes when you get like a 5 or something like that, while it is free and whatnot, and this can pay for itself, you still kind of find yourself at a little bit of a disadvantage if you go ahead and play it and you get like a first mate out. It doesn't necessarily feel good, but there are still a lot of things that you can hit that are incredibly nice in this case. So usually you just ramp up Dazzling Aurora. I think it's a great deck to side. Cannon Barrage, we see that again, but a new one as well is going to be Gentleman's Duel, which give a friendly unit plus 3 might this turn, then choose an enemy unit. They deal damage equal to their might to each other. So, all in all, this is just a really exciting tournament. Really fun to be able to see what the community was able to pull together. This was a passion project for Jacob, and he was able to do an absolutely great job, especially just with the graphics and even just directing the entire thing as a whole. Was really great to work alongside him with that. Thank you guys so much for also even being a part of this tournament. None of this would be possible without you as the competitors signing up for these tournaments. I know Riftbound Meta is running a lot of tournaments every Saturday as well. It's really great to be able to see what he's able to do with that. A lot of exciting things coming this way. This game isn't even out until October, and a lot of people are just absolutely loving this game so far. So what units or what legends are you most looking forward to playing? What kind of surprised you about this tournament, and did you tune in to watch the gameplay as well? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, guys, have a good one.